deciding whether a convicted killer should live or die after stabbing his ex-girlfriend and her 8-year-old son. Cedric Ricks was convicted by the Tarrant County jury of capital murder in the deaths of his ex-girlfriend, Roxanne Sanchez, and her 8-year-old son, Anthony. Last week, Roxanne's now 13-year-old son testified about the night Ricks stabbed the family in their Bedford apartment. During closing arguments today, prosecutors talked about impulse control, meaning whether Ricks could evaluate his actions before carrying them out.
Well, you heard plenty of evidence in this case about other crimes that he committed that you can't say are impulse control problem crimes. He stole medicine from his doctors, smuggled it out of their offices. That takes thought and planning.
There's something at his core that he couldn't control, and how do we know that? How do we know that? This man had a family and a support system that maybe most of us in this courtroom didn't have.
If not sentenced to death, Ricks could get life in prison without parole.
In Tarrant County, Texas, a family conflict would escalate in a way that drew national attention. On May 1, 2013, the lives of Roxanne Sanchez and her children changed forever. The details of what unfolded would later be examined with painstaking care by investigators, lawyers, and the community. This case is not about shock value or sensationalized accounts, it's about understanding the facts, the human decisions, and the legal process that followed. Over the next several minutes, we will examine the circumstances leading to the incident, the people involved, the methodical investigation, and the legal outcome. By focusing on verified testimony, court documents, and investigative reports, this documentary aims to provide a clear and responsible account. Every scene, statement, and procedural action matters. As you watch, consider the layers of this case, the decisions, the evidence, and the legal process. Pay attention to the details that shape the investigation and the courtroom proceedings. This is the story of how law, family, and conflict intersected in a way that tested a community and the justice system. Stay attentive through each chapter and subscribe now to follow the full story from start to finish. You won't want to miss a single development. In the early evening hours of May 1, 2013, Roxanne Sanchez returned home with her children. Cedric Ricks, her former partner, was present in the household. Earlier disagreements and ongoing disputes set the stage for a confrontation that would escalate rapidly. Neighbors reported hearing raised voices and signs of tension within the home. Family members outside the household became concerned after noticing unusual patterns in calls and messages, prompting them to contact law enforcement. The authorities responded quickly, prioritizing the safety of the family and attempting to piece together the unfolding events. Marcus Figueroa, Sanchez's older son, provided critical insight into the interactions that evening. His observations helped investigators reconstruct the timeline, noting who was present, what was said, and the sequence of events. These accounts formed the foundation for understanding what had occurred before the authorities arrived. The early law enforcement response relied on interviews, digital evidence, and logistical coordination to locate Ricks. Through phone records and verified movement data, investigators were able to trace his location and actions in the hours immediately following the incident. This careful work ensured that authorities could intervene effectively while preserving the integrity of the case. By examining the sequence of events, investigators established a factual timeline that would later support the charges in court proceedings. The community and family members closely followed these developments, emphasizing the importance of precise documentation in serious criminal investigations. To fully understand how this case progressed, stay with the documentary. Every detail contributes to the overall narrative and shapes the legal and investigative outcomes. In the weeks and months leading up to May 1, 2013, the dynamics between Cedric Ricks and Roxanne Sanchez were fraught with tension. Their relationship had ended months earlier, and Sanchez had obtained a protective order in late 2012, which expired in January 2013. The unresolved concerns from that period continued to affect the household. Roxanne Sanchez was a mother striving to maintain stability for her children. Her dedication was evident to friends, neighbors, and investigators. She balanced work, childcare, and the challenges of managing a household under stress from prior disputes. Anthony, her 8-year-old son, and Marcus Figueroa, her older child, were central to the family's structure. Their experiences and testimony later proved crucial in reconstructing events. Cedric Rick's background reflected a history of personal and legal struggles. Previous conflicts with Sanchez, combined with ongoing disputes, created a context that investigators examined closely. Understanding these dynamics helped law enforcement assess intent and behavior leading to the events of May 1. The household environment, the prior protective orders, family tensions, and history of disputes provided investigators with critical insight. Every interview, legal record, and account contributed to forming a complete picture of the people involved and the circumstances that led to the incident. Pay close attention to these backgrounds, they frame the narrative of the investigation and the legal process. Observing how the lives of the victims and the accused intersected is essential to understanding the case. In the days leading up to May 1, neighbors noticed escalating arguments between Ricks and Sanchez, signaling unresolved conflicts over custody and household decisions. Friends reported that attempts at communication often ended in disagreement, creating a tense atmosphere. On the evening of May 1, Sanchez returned home with her children. Cedric Ricks was already present, and exchanges quickly became heated. Witnesses later confirmed that the conflict escalated through raised voices and emotional exchanges, providing crucial context for investigators. Marcus Figueroa observed interactions and later described the sequence of events in interviews with law enforcement. His statements detailed who was present, the order of responses, and the environment in the home. These observations were critical in establishing an accurate timeline. Family members outside the home, concerned about unusual communications, contacted authorities. Investigators then analyzed phone records and digital activity, mapping Rick's movements as he left Texas. These steps led law enforcement to locate him in Oklahoma several hours later. His arrest proceeded without incident, preserving the integrity of the evidence and supporting the upcoming legal process. Every moment within this timeline contributed to understanding the broader picture. Observing the interactions, the calls for help, and the documented movements allows the audience to see the methodical approach law enforcement used to piece together the events of the night. Follow closely. Understanding this timeline is essential to grasping how investigators reconstructed events and later presented evidence in court. Once authorities were notified, law enforcement began documenting the scene, collecting statements from neighbors, relatives, and Marcus Figueroa. His account provided a clear sequence of interactions, helping investigators establish the precise order of events. Investigators gathered phone records, communications, and other data to confirm Rick's movements. Digital evidence and verified location information were crucial in tracking his location in Oklahoma hours after leaving the home. Upon locating Ricks, law enforcement coordinated his arrest without confrontation. He was extradited to Texas, ensuring procedural compliance and preserving the chain of custody for evidence. Investigators analyzed prior protective orders, legal disputes, and family history to understand the context surrounding the events. Interviews and documented records helped clarify motives, intentions, and household dynamics. Every step in the investigation was meticulously recorded. Witness statements, evidence, and procedural notes were combined to create a comprehensive account of events. This careful method ensured accuracy and strengthened the prosecution's case. To see how every detail in the investigation shaped the case, hit subscribe and make sure you follow along until the very end. The trial of Cedric Ricks in 2015 brought the case into public focus. Prosecutors outlined the timeline and actions of all involved, presenting testimony from Marcus Figueroa, other family members, and law enforcement. Rick's defense team highlighted his personal history, disputes with Sanchez, and prior conflicts. They aimed to contextualize his actions and explain intent, presenting mitigating factors while questioning interpretations of events. Evidence included protective orders, communications, and police reports, which were used to verify statements and establish credibility. Witnesses described events factually, without graphic or sensationalized content, ensuring clarity for the jury. After careful deliberation, the jury returned a verdict of capital murder. The decision reflected the cumulative evidence, corroborated testimony, and the jury's evaluation of intent and circumstances. This trial phase demonstrated the importance of methodical legal procedure and thorough evidence review. Each testimony, document, and procedural action contributed to a legally sound verdict. To see how the judicial process accounted for every detail and led to final sentencing, stay with the documentary. Understanding the trial is essential to following the case to its conclusion. Following conviction, the jury recommended the death penalty, formalized by the presiding judge. This decision reflected the seriousness of the charges and the evidence presented. Ricks pursued appeals, reviewing trial procedures, evidence, and legal interpretations. These standard capital case reviews ensured the verdict met rigorous legal standards. Ultimately, the conviction and sentence were upheld. The case sparked public discussion regarding domestic conflict, protective measures, and capital punishment procedures. Family accounts, legal analysis, and community reflection highlighted the impact of prior warnings, evidence, and judicial oversight. The conclusion offers lessons about the importance of evidence, structured investigation, and legal process. Protective measures, family testimony, and methodical law enforcement were essential in achieving an outcome consistent with the law. Understand how investigation, trial, and legal review intersected by subscribing now. Watching to the end will reveal the full lessons from this case.